I've never DJ'd, and I feel like if I did, I would have a better sense of my equipment. So thank you, Ben, for that prompt. All right, so now I'll go back into PowerPoint. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to give you kind of a little bit more context for our resonance work and hopefully wrap it up. Um, okay, Florence is coming. Well, we'll wait for Florence to arrive. Okay, welcome, Florence. Back in. Zell, I can still, you're still the person I can see. Thank you, sir. All right. So as I was saying, folks, and after Ben prompted me for the recording, we are ready to go. Tonight we'll be doing revisiting resonance and then getting into pitch and inflection. The additional information I wanted to give you about resonance, as you see with the PowerPoint slide in front of you, the background about resonance, sound waves are energy, waves of energy. Sorry, that's a tautology, but sound is a form of energy and it bounces off of hard surfaces. It bounces most efficiently. And resonance is related to that. So that was the first thing that I wanted to tell you. Resonance, so you produce, I think I had you in the first class or in the previous class, if you were humming or if you were talking muted as you are, then you would feel the primary vibration from your vocal cords. And then that vibration then bounces off of walls. It also bounces off of the bones of your body. And so the distinction of some of the voices that we set up, the voices we talked about, chest voice, head voice, et cetera, are kind of the major bony areas in our body. It's one of those reasons why, and I think Zell, you had a great question about the gut voice last week. It's one of the reasons why that gut voice isn't particularly resonant, because there's just not a lot of bone down there versus organs compared to some of the other sounds where we can really hear. There's some tones where we can really feel our chest, the vibration in our chest, or in the higher tones, really hear the vibration in our heads. So that was the first thing I wanted to tell you. Other kind of factoids about hard surfaces, when we're back kind of in we talked about before times, I guess there'll be after times eventually, when you're speaking in public, one of the things, this is the detail about hard surfaces, you as a speaker will want to take a look at the environment in which you're speaking. Sound will bounce off of glass, it will bounce off of wood, it will bounce off of marble, etc. And so that's something to know, that the sound may be, sometimes audio people talk about liver, that there will be you might be in a space that is conducive to sound. By contrast, if you're in a place that has heavy curtains or heavy furniture, or if there are lots of people, our bodies also absorb sound too, then you might need to speak a little bit louder, or have the audio people, if you have an audio person, turn the sound up, because softer surfaces, the sound doesn't really bounce off of those softer surfaces. And also too, if you are ever recording something, or if you think of a recording booth, those tend to be, filled with blankets or sound dampening, so that the sound doesn't bounce off. It pretty much goes straight from a speaker or singer's mouth right into the microphone. I also wanted to share with you, as it says on this slide, there's a related process. Reverb and resonance are slightly different, but resonance and reverb, they're the reason that your voice sounds different to you than it does to, on a recording or your voicemail. People are like, oh no, that doesn't sound like me. You're hearing the sound in your ear, but you're also hearing it like in your body. Also, the kind of sound waves bouncing off of hard surfaces are why we all sound awesome in the bathroom. Lots of hard surfaces, usually some ceramic tile, and usually a relatively small space. So there's it's a nice nest of sound where the sound it's coming out of our mouths and it's bouncing back. So our voices sound louder and fuller. So if you ever need a voice self-esteem pickup. And you can just go then you can just go practice in a shower. Also, showers happen to be good because there's usually moisture there. That's good for you. So singing in the showers is recommended. So that was the piece I wanted to give you. And then I think I showed you this slide in the previous section. So you got your principles of sound waves. Then we kind of move into the body, where I'm inviting you to, one of the gifts of relaxation is that you'll be more resonant. And you see my little slide there with a glass on the left, that's sort of the tense voice versus the glass on the right. Last thing I wanted to tell you about resonance, as you see here on the slide, again, the reason we take a little time with it is because audiences tend to like resonant voices. But I also wanted to tell you that there are benefits for you. As you see here, if you can feel resonance, and obviously when you're speaking, your intention is to communicate to your audience. But if you're feeling resonance, that's sort of a sign that things are going well. It means that you're already relaxed and aligned. But also, if you're feeling your body vibrate, it should feel good. If you feel you're speaking and you're like, oh yes, my chest is vibrating with authority, if you have the mental bandwidth to observe that, it feels soothing in the same way that humming or singing feels soothing. And I say here, your mother's womb sounds. Some researchers have hypothesized that the reason that humming or even singing may be comforting to us is because that may have been how we experienced sound when we were in utero. And then you see I've even added this book on the right, which I haven't read yet, but in kind of wanting to find some extra resources for you. Someone here has written these two folks have written a whole book on the humming effect, that you could actually heal yourself with sound. That's sort of the nth degree beyond what we're doing. But the point is that resonance and vibration, your audience enjoys them. It brings them in. They're literally feeling the vibration that you are creating, but also that it should feel good for you, good to you, and can even be healing for you. So hopefully that's incentive to get relaxed or stay relaxed so that you can vibrate. All right, let me stop that share. Okay, now I'm going to get into night's work.
I have to say, this is kind of an off the wall thing, but
yeah, go for it, Patty.
I'll limit my off the wall things. But since my generation, they had the transcendental meditation where everybody was going, oh, you're supposed to do that. Is there some kind of a linkage there with that concept that's supposed to be calming and humming and ish?
Patty, there may be, and then I found that humming book, and then I was like, oh, I'm falling into an internet hole. Let me pause here and recommend the book, and then maybe we can find it. But the answer is yes, Patty, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Apparently we all have a tone which is ideal for us. This is in the world of sound healing. This is very much outside of the realm of voice and speech, yeah, but and also that different organs in our bodies have different frequencies, so that we have one tone that's like our tone, but then that our liver has an ideal tone or frequency, our heart has an ideal tone or frequency, etc. Definitely beyond my purview, so I won't speak about it too extensively, other than to say that it exists. So yeah, if you really vibe, pun intended, if that's really your thing, yes, definitely there are spiritual and healing modalities around sound. We're sort of in the more pedestrian, but yes, Patty, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So now I will, actually, let me pause. Apologize for that. Let me go back. What's happening? My apologies, folks. I'm going to pause because the pitch will not only be me, lecturing, but you beginning your work. So let's pause and warm up. So if I could have you stand, if you're not already standing. I'll say that once we do our warm up, stand as long as it's comfortable, but also feel free to sit. Again, once we've done the warm up, because we'll be speaking for quite a bit. All right.
Why
So,
is that? Why is that the standing? You had a standing last week. You say stand as long as possible. Is there something innately good about that?
great question, Florence. It's part of it is so that because there's there's a particular just physical sensation of feeling the ground underneath your feet, and um, that practice of standing with ease. It's sort of it's and that takes more muscle engagement than sitting in a chair. So that's part of it. You're practicing a bit more the principles of alignment and relaxation. And also, very frankly, it's because some of us, myself included, tend to slouch once we're seated. So that's why I invite you to stand. Also, Florence, the last thing is, and I know there's a mix of when we present, but a number of us may speak standing. So it's also to give us a little standing stamina. All right, speakers. So as we've done in our previous sessions, the first thing I'd like you to do is take a minute to give yourselves whatever physical stretch you need in this moment. We'll come back and do the simple stretches we do as a group. But right now, as a speaker, building or continuing awareness of your body, and if there's not a particular physical stretch, but what you need right now is you simply want to exist and breathe, and you want to breathe in forbearance, or you want to breathe in enthusiasm. You can also breathe those in and let anything go that you don't need, irritation, impatience, etc. Great. And now we'll begin our very simple physical warm-up. If you would please begin by moving your head from side to side, as though you were shaking your head no. And as in previous sessions, how far over you take your head to the side is completely up to you, depending on the sort of day you've had, any physical challenges you might be dealing with, etc. And then let that move into a gently shaking your head yes. Again, same principle of taking care of yourself, that how far back and forward your head moves is completely up to you. We'll actually stop here and do something slightly different. Going back to our first session's exploration of posture, we'll do the sort of protruded head, and then the head going forward over the spine. Again, not ideal. And then us sort of retracting the head, so as though we were a chicken pecking. Great, and let that go, and we're going to do head rolls to make sure that we didn't engender any tension as we just did that. So again, I'll go on a count of 16 for an entire circle. So by the count of 4, if we're going to our right, your ear will be near your shoulder. 8, you'll be able to look at the ceiling. 12 and 16, yeah? Okay, so if you would begin with your head slightly bowed. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Let's reverse speakers, opposite direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Excellent. Now we'll melt into shoulder rolls. Oh, that's a tongue twister for me. Shoulder rolls with both shoulders going back. Again, the size of the circle is up to you. So it can either be a small circle or a larger circle. You can get your shoulders, get your elbows into it if you want to do it more of a swinging circle. Whatever you need. And then reversing the circle. Again, small circles are great, or larger circles, even motored with the assistance of your elbows if you like. Speaker's choice. And then we'll move into our gentle twist, moving from the belly button so that the arms flop along for the ride. Great. And then some big circles. Sorry for that. As though you were hula hooping in slow motion. And this is just to get a little movement in the spine. And then we'll do our small knee circles. And reverse direction. And then last but not least, speaker's choice, some sort of foot stretch, either the faux tap dancing that I've done in the past or stretching the front of the foot or stretching so that the arch is stretched a bit. To remind ourselves of those hard-working feet at the end of the body. Great. Now with that simple physical warm-up, we'll move into the vocal warm-up. And so speakers, as we've done before, speaker's choice, speaker's choice, either a tongue trill, lip trill, or humming. So either a gentle or a gentle hum. This is not a volume exercise. This is for you to gently warm up your vocal cords. I'll do lip trill today, so. Nice and soothing. And then I'll give it range. I'll hum happy birthday for what it's worth, but you could make any sort of pitch range that moves a little bit, but we're not going to the highest of our highs or the lowest of our lows, but just moving through the voice a little bit. So after all, it's someone's birthday, right? All right. And now, folks, I'm going to we'll move into our pitch exercises. But since we've barely just begun, actually moving into the pitch exercises will continue our warm-up. So I'll encourage you to be gentle with yourselves. All right, give me one moment and I'll go back into PowerPoint. 3. Okay. All right, so very briefly, why do we spend time with pitch and inflection? It happens that standard American English, what we speak, isn't a tonal language. Also, the accent that we speak in isn't particularly musical compared to some others, but still pitch, inflection are useful useful for a couple of reasons. Monotonous speaking, that is speaking on more or less one tone or pitch, may bore our listeners. but also because we use pitch and inflection for meaning or for emphasis, monotonous speaking may often confuse listeners. All right, so then here we go. The first exercise, and these next several will all be about a series of numbers with pitches. This first one, as you see here, invites you to count aloud from 1 to 20, alternating between low and high pitches as you do so. So the pattern would be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But because we're using this as part of our warm-up, the sort of the difference between the high and low will be more subtle. Yeah? All right, so let's begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Excellent. And then this next set, you'll be following continuing to follow the instruction of the arrows. These are two different sequences from 1 through 5. But in the first one, as the instruction says, you're giving each count an upward inflection, as if you were asking a question. I'll give you the tip that since we're changing our pitch, you may need to elongate saying the number, if that makes sense. So instead of doing 1, it's slightly different from that very first one. So feel free to say 1, for example. Give yourself some space to experiment with. All right, let's try that sequence A where we're doing upward inflections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then with the B sequence, we'll give each count a downward inflection, suggesting finality. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had to start doing hand gestures because all of a sudden I lost my bearing and couldn't tell if I was going down or not. So if you need hand gestures, feel free. All right, here's the next sequence. And this sequence introduces us not only to upward and downward arrows, but squiggly ones where we're going start low and then we go high and then we go down and then we go low again, etc. So this time there are 5 arrows, so then you are following the arrows' instructions for pitch. And folks of this particular group of speakers has been so willing to kind of jump in and experiment. I haven't needed my list of people I'm going to call on. So then I will, why don't we all do the first line together? And then volunteers who want to give lines 2, 3, or 4 a go can come off of mute and do that. And I'll also say volunteers, you'll get your choice of line to explore. Yeah? Okay, but first we'll all do line 1 together. And me with hand gestures off screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think I get it. I've done this a few times. All right, would anyone like to come off of mute and give line 2 a go? And I'm quickly scrolling through, so if you're Olivia, are you on? Okay, are you unmuted? Or did you volunteer? Forgive me if I volunteered you.
That's fine, yeah. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
great. Yes, I can hear you.
Good. So I'll do line 2, but
Okay, I just took it away. Okay, perfect.
all right.
No, it's back now.
1, 2. I'm not sure if I got that right.
You did. It was subtle, but you did.
3, 4, 5.
And I would like you to do the line again And let's say for the purposes of exploration, feel free to draw out the numbers even longer and exaggerate them even more now that we're a little bit more warmed up. So for your upward inflection, for example, instead of going, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pluck it out of the air, 3, feel free to go 3, for example. Anything that's not painful, to exaggerate for the purposes of the exercise. Does that make sense, Olivia?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. So, and also feel free to get messy because, like I said, for some reason, this is really challenging me today as well.
I started getting confused in my own doing.
Yeah. No worries. No
So
worries.
now I get it what you just said before. I think.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think try the last one where you do an upward inflection.
5, 5.
Try it. Just ask it like a question.
5.
Mm-hmm.
5, 5.
When I tell you I'm 5 years old and you ask me 5 in disbelief.
5.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? And I'm scrolling through. Okay, I saw Robin's hand. Great. Thank you, Olivia. Great, Robin, whenever you're ready, either lines 2, 3, 4, or 5, or even if you'd like to go back to 1.
I will try 3.
Okay, go for it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else? You've seen how it's done. They've both lived to tell the tale. Yes, Colette. Whichever you like. And yes, Colette.
Hang on, I gotta come off mute. Sorry, my dog is reacting to these exercises. She like kind of flipped out at the lip trill. She came running with her tail wagging. I think she thought we were going somewhere.
Oh.
Okay. So line 4.
Well, whichever you like.
Okay, I'll try it with the squiggly line.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes. Well done. Well done. All right. Anyone else before we move on? We'll go into a language and we'll move away from the arrows. I'll take one last look through the assembly. All righty. I didn't see another hand, so we will continue for now. All right, folks. So, arrows are all well and good, but we speak language. So now we'll get into text. All right. But even as we get into text, at least at this point, we're trying to examine our patterns and kind of break them up. So with arrows, the arrows told us to do all sorts of funky stuff. These passages do that as well. So in the first passage, we are using downward inflections on the underlined words. And this already anticipates that some of these will feel a little strange for us. And the instructions say, exaggerate the inflections beyond what seems habitual for you. So again, some of these will make sense to our ears. Some of these will seem odd, but they're on purpose to, as we're shaking things up at this point. So we'll do the entire sequence in passage A as a group. And then if you would like to, I'll have volunteers, maybe someone who didn't go before, give us, if not the entire passage, then at least a sentence from passage B, and that's using upward inflections. But again, passage A, any word underlined, we will use a downward inflection, or at least our best attempts to do so.
I'll do it.
Oh, all right. Ben, so we're going to do we'll do the whole upper passage together as a group. But can I definitely call on you for passage B in a moment?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, folks. So let's all begin with passage A. You are a fool. You must have been blind not to have foreseen the harm you have done. You say you did not think. I say you did not feel. You lack all sensitivity to human suffering, and you cannot make amends with money. Keep your money. Only go away and never come back. Never.
Hey, Joy, I have a question. When
Yeah.
you say downward inflection, you're no longer talking about within the word, you're talking about from the preceding word. At least that's how I hear it.
Great question. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, excellent point. Yes. So now, since we're outside of we're moving from the arrows into text, so more like the conditions that you'll either use speaking extemporaneously or from written remarks. Yes. So now it's contextual. Great point, and that gets into sort of what's variety for, or what we're using it for. So yes, thank you.
What's physically happening when we change our pitch to go down versus up?
What you mean, like actually what's happening in the body?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm dropping my jaw to go down or something like that.
Yes, you may be dropping your jaw. Also, well, the vocal cords, what determines the sound is which vocal cords meet and where they meet. So you're actually sort of, the vocal cords are, the type of contact is shifting.
Mhm. But in the
So if it helps you to lower the jaw, I would say yes, great. Ideally, you don't need to move your head. You don't need to move your head a lot. So it wouldn't necessarily be, you are a fool. I mean, you might be doing that in these beginning stages because you're in the learning or the newly aware stage. So kind of like me doing my finger prompts and hand prompts. But that eventually you won't need to also move your head as you do a lower pitch. Yes.
so it's not any kind of a placement in the vocal cavity. It's all happening in the
Not well. It is in the sense that you go from your middle range to more of that chest voice.
okay.
So you will experience a change, but other than your brain thinking I'm doing downward inflection, there's nothing physically that needs to happen.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like if you think of and singing is like speech, just sustained speech or speech sustained on notes. Singers typically, for many of the notes they sing, they don't have to change the position of their heads. Sometimes if they're singing a really high note, they may do something that helps make that more comfortable. But in general, when they're singing, they don't have to. They're moving to interpret the song, not because they need to shift what their body's doing. So yeah, vocal cords can change pitch without you doing too much in the rest of the system. Hopefully that answers that question.
Can I piggyback on that question quickly?
Yeah.
Last week we worked on like the gut, voice in the gut, or the chest, or the head. So
Yeah.
it occurs to me, depending on where you start, you're going down from, you could be in one of those areas, and that I sort of think of that sort of physiologically too, like you could be.
Yes, for sure. And pitch and resonance are they're siblings, they're not twins, so they're related. So when you do an upward inflection, you may, especially depending on where you start, you may feel it in your head. If you would do a downward inflection, you'll feel it you'll feel it more in your chest because you tend to be using a deeper part of your voice. So yes, definitely. I love that you all are braiding the information together. Yes, absolutely. All right. Ben volunteered for passage B. So Ben, whenever you're ready, and then if anyone else wants to give it a go, we also have more to do as well. But Ben, whenever you're ready.
Is this the fashion? Is a lady to bear herself above to indent What's that?
Indecency?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Indecency, squeeze herself in the middle to discomfort, and wrap herself below to immobility.
Mhm.
And is she then to paint her face to deck herself with ribbons, laces, feathers, and false jewels in order to consider herself turned out in style?
Yes, excellent. Well done, well done. And thank you. And actually, Ben, excuse me. Yes, well done. And congrats on also as a speaker giving yourself the time in case you needed time, and also even adding a sort of emotional tone of incredulity underneath. So I want to give I'll tell a quick story, and then we'll go on to I'll see if anyone else wants to do it. And one of the first times I was teaching this course, a gentleman came up to me after class, and he said that it was a revelation for him that people typically go up on upward inflections when they're asking questions, as Ben not only did in this passage, but in other words as well. And he realized that he never asked questions with upward inflections, and that people in his office never knew when he was asking questions because he did not go up on an upward inflection. So, we're not talking about vast degrees, but if you say, hey, would you like to go to Wendy's to have lunch? If you didn't say that with an upward inflection, or if you said, I'm not sure. I can't give a great example, but it was a revelation for him. Let's see. Would you like to go to Wendy's for lunch? Sure. Maybe that's what he did. So yes, these upward inflections, and it doesn't. You're not saying it at the top of your voice. You're not saying, "Would you like to go to Wendy's for lunch?" You're just going up a little bit on the end, because in American English, that's what we do to indicate a question. Anyone else want to take a go? I'll now open up the floor up before we move on.
I
A
do.
or B? Patty? Yeah,
Yeah.
which one would you?
Oh, which one?
Yeah, you get your speaker's pick. Thank you, Ben, again.
Okay. Well, I think downward for some reason is harder, so I'll do the.
Okay, that was the next thing I was going to ask folks, if one was a challenge or the other. So go for it, Patty. Give us.
You are a fool. You must have been blind, not to have foreseen the harm you have done. You say you did not think. I say you did not feel. I still need to move my jaw. You lack all sensitivity to human suffering. That's funny. And you cannot make amends with money. Keep your money. Only go away and never come back. Never. Okay, you know what this reminds me of now? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I do something with artificial intelligence and robots or something. So they've spent billions and billions of dollars trying to come up with a voicemail sound when you call in for your credit report or whatever, or you call Costco or Walmart, so that it sounds like a human voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of you, I mean, you probably notice that it's getting better and better. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's starting to sound like, for a second you thought, oh, I'm really talking to somebody. No, I'm not. It's a machine. And so the reason for that is, at first, the psychologically, like how we can recognize an accent very quickly, and there's a whole philosophy about why we can recognize an accent so quickly, and what it says about our species. But we can also recognize machines really fast, and it's because the machine's accent is uniformity, and the human voice is not uniform. So in order to make it more human, they put all these weird random patterns of inflections into it, so that it disguises it so it doesn't sound like a robot, which I say is kind of cool, because I mean sometimes that's so human-like, but that's why, because our brain can recognize accents and inflection patterns unconsciously.
That's fascinating, Patty. Actually, that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, but I thought, but anyway, when you do that, when you're doing that pitch up and down, and it's randomly good and randomly high, it's kind of doing what they've spent billions of dollars trying to do with those voice things, and they're almost there. I think they're doing pretty well.
Yes, and can be as you said, this exercise, and also thank you, Patty, too, for it's also highlighting the discomfort, or not discomfort like you're outraged or something, but it's upsetting some of the words emphasized or upsetting expectations. Anyone else want to give one of these passages a go? Just want to scroll
I just
through.
had a quick comment on the artificial intelligence thing. I can't resist. One time after interacting, I realized this was a recording, and I even said, "Are you a robot?" And it had an answer for that. It's like, I'm a mechanically devised something, and they even can even argue with you about it. So it's very sophisticated.
Learning machines.
Woo! I'll try one if someone else wants to jump in.
And is that Florence?
Yeah, I'm all cattywampus with my view here. I want to be side by. I don't know what I don't mean to be without a picture. Can you see me?
No, we can only see like above your eyebrows to the top of your head.
That I can fix. But
okay, perfect.
All right, I'll try. I'll have some fun. Okay.
Okay.
You are a fool. You must have been blind not to have foreseen the harm you have done. You say you did not think. I say you did not feel. You lack all sensitivity to human suffering, and you cannot make amends with money. Keep your money. Only go away and never come back. Never.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, there.
That note of finality. All right, let me take one last scroll. All right, friends, I will move on from that one. Now we'll break it apart a little bit, and now we'll beyond those earlier exercises where we were playing with the sort of the dictates of the arrows or the underlined words. Now we have instructions inside parentheses. So you see here the title of this slide is pitch, inflection, that just means a change in pitch or tone, and meaning. Again, even though English isn't particularly tonal or musical, we can still put a lot of meaning into even individual words. So you'll see here the three words provided are snow, and for some of us in the DC area, we are experiencing some snow at last. Then well and lazy. And the invitation, there's information inside the parentheses, and so you're supposed to give in saying the one word snow and then the one word well and lazy, you're giving the sense of whatever is in the parentheses. So for the first snow, it would be snow. And I add a gesture just to be, put the cherry on top, but that one's sort of surprise. So is that clear, or do I need to do a few more? Okay, so let's all do snow together. And then if any volunteer speakers want to jump in for the well and the lazy sequences. So the first snow. Snow.
Snow.
Great. Next one, and we'll do them all together. Snow.
No.
The third one.
Snow.
Excellent. Next one. Snow.
No.
Nice. And last, snow. Snow.
No.
Great. And I should say that my line readings are not they're not the final word. Yeah, this is individual interpretation. Excellent, excellently done. All right, so now I will ask some individual speakers as I again scroll through you. Anyone? Okay, now I think I'm going to start volunteering some folks I have not heard from yet. Mr. Zell, will you give us the well sequence?
Sure. Well. 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 Well.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. And Chris, you happen to be in the box underneath Zell in my setup. And so you have the 4 iterations of lazy.
All right. Lazy. 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 Lazy.
Excellent. All right. Next, we're getting into, for the next couple of things, I'm giving you some terms from performance, I think. If you encounter some of these in fields beyond performance, let me know. So as the slide here says spoken English, and I guess I should distinguish that from written English, is built around operative words. And what I mean by that are the words that get the most emphasis to guide your listener to the most important part. I think that's a very wordy way of explaining what I meant. But I meant that there are key words in a sentence and that we use inflection or we use pitch to tell the tell the listener what the most important word is. And so the sample sentence here is, I want to drive home. I tried saying that like a computer, I want to drive home, all in the same pitch. But if we change our inflection, that is, if we change the one word that we emphasize, it changes the sense. So you see the examples there. So the first one, and please feel free to say them along with me. So the first one, and they're bolded, the words to be emphasized. So the first one is, I want to drive home. And the sense is, I'm the driver. Perhaps that other person has had too much to drink and should not be driving. The next one emphasizes the word want. I want to drive home. Like, I'm insisting. I guess you could also say, I'm ready to go. Maybe that could also be the context. The third example emphasizes the word drive. I want to drive home. I want to take the car, not get a taxi, not walk home, not get an Uber, etc. And the last example is, I want to drive home. Home is where I want to go. I don't want to stay at this party. I don't want to go to the grocery store, etc. I'll also say for the performers, speakers, etc. If you're working with written text, unless the author, playwright, etc., has indicated the word to be stressed with a bold, with an underline, with italics, you get to choose the operative word. I mean, sometimes they're obvious, but if there may be cases when it's up to interpretation, and then you can experiment and see which works best for you.
If I could comment on something.
Yeah, Ben, go for it.
I've noticed that whenever I read comic books, that there are certain words that are italicized or bolded, and I think they're meant to be the operative word for the sentence, or in some cases paragraph, of what the character is saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know that if I'm reading a script, for example, the writer will oftentimes indicate if he, she, they has very specific, intentions for a line. They'll indicate that. Did someone say something? Sorry, I missed you. Okay. All right. So now there are many more sentences for you all to experiment with. So you see them here. I'll invite, and they're brief. I'll invite volunteer speakers to come off of mute and essentially experiment. So repeat that experiment that we did with I want to drive home, but with one of these sentences. And let me,
Can I do the first one?
yeah, go for it, Ben.
That's a lie.
And then, Ben, could you do it again and choose a different operative word for your experiment?
That's a lie?
Mm-hmm. And I know the A and the are a little less effective, but give it a go and see if you can make the letter A or the word A your operative word. See how that goes.
That's a lie.
Yes, great. Yeah, in general, there's not as much sort of juice in those the A, thes, etc. But excellent. All right. Great. And I'm just trying to find you. Who's the I?
Oh,
Patty. Okay, great. Patty, go for it.
I'm gonna do an easy one. I'm not gonna. Okay. Give him the book. Give him the book. Give him the book.
Yes.
Give him.
Thank you. And Patty, just emphasize the. See if you can. See if you can get anything out of that. I know it's a little weird.
Give him the book.
Yes, great. All right. Colleen, I'm not sure I've heard from you tonight, friend. Would you mind selecting one and exploring?
Sure. I'll go with the first line.
Okay.
I leave tonight. I leave tonight. I leave tonight.
Excellent. Barry, would you grab one?
I'm glad I'm done. I'm glad I'm done. I'm glad I'm done. I'm glad I'm done.
Yes, thank you. Colette, I think I've heard from you, but would you give it a go?
Do you care which one?
No, speaker's choice.
Okay, maybe I'll do the last one.
Okay.
I know the way. I know the way. I know the way. I know the way.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, you all know how it goes. You've got how it goes. Anyone else want to grab a sentence before we leave this section? Okay. Then I will move on, friends. And I will say that we're going through these, and then I'll summarize the list of them, and then with your texts, if you have them, we'll kind of plumb them a little bit and see how we can apply these. Yeah. All right. The next use of pitch or inflection is the pattern of rising and falling pitches, and they can be useful for expressing comparisons and contrasts. In doing Shakespeare work, we would call those antitheses. As John Barton of the Royal Shakespeare Company would say in his series from the 1980s, I think, Playing Shakespeare, you're setting the word against the word. And I would finish that phrase, and you're using pitch or inflection to do so. So with these four statements, I guess four sentences I've given you, these are mostly, well, no, they could be comparisons. Comparisons are a type of contrast. But as I say here, you're making your pitch rise steadily through the first line and fall throughout the second, kind of like the upward and downward arrow pattern I've given you on the left, except now you're doing it with a whole set of text. So we can do them all together as a group. You'll see the first one, and I have to change my view of you all slightly so I can see it. All right, so the first one, and I'm going to do hand gestures in this mode of learning and exaggerating, yeah? So up to the heavens of sublimity, down to the depths of despair, up the mountainside to the highest peak, and down between the hills to the valley's floor. He schemed to win a crown of gold, but won a dungeon deep and cold. Lured by the blah, blah, blah. Lured by the strumpet fame's charms, he died in the hag Oblivion's arms. Again, this is something that we tend to do naturally, or that we've absorbed from speakers. Since we were young, I'm bringing just bringing it up again for our awareness. So if we were, I don't know, I feel like I talk about Dr. Fauci all of the time, but if we were comparing vaccines, we might say the Moderna vaccine, da 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 da, versus the upcoming Johnson's vaccine, which is da 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 da. Or we might say the vaccine needs for folks 65 and older versus the vaccine needs for kids under 12, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we're setting up those two so we intellectually we know they're different, but we're distinguishing them, making them distinct by pitch in that moment. And then, of course, if you had, favorites, as it said here, up to sublimity of heavens of sublimity versus depths of despair. Of course, if you also wanted to disparage something, you could say, oh, well, such and such is great, so and so not so much. I mean, you could do it in that case as well. All right. I think I will go next. And I know I'm packing a lot in, but I want to make sure you have the catalog of things, and then I will re-summarize them in the follow-up email along with some bonus videos. We already found in that one passage where we had to use the downward inflections, or I should say the volunteer speakers found that if you kind of approached that previous passage with an air of authority or finality, it helped it make sense. In fact, you were already doing the point of this slide, which is that if you end a passage on a lower note, the audience knows that your statement is coming to an end. You can also sometimes, if you lower your pitch and you slow down a little bit. Okay, so actually I'll call on a volunteer and we can explore this in real time instead of me continuing to talk. Florence, I saw you come off of mute. Yes, you get your choice of sentences.
I'll take the second one.
Okay.
A breakdown of the figures show that over 1 million was spent on external consultants.
Yes, excellent. Let me, Chris, could you take the previous one?
Sure. Police are mounting a review after a woman was arrested on suspicion of murder.
Yes, thank you. And if you all ever watch television news, they do a lot of that. And coming up soon, we'll find out why da 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 da. Or on award
at 11.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because they're literally telling us when to stop listening, or maybe they might be telling the person in the studio to go to commercial. Really quickly about that. I was at an acting workshop once with someone who was in local news, had been an actor, was in local news broadcasting and wanted to come back to acting. And that pitch pattern of local news was so deeply ingrained in her from practice that she read everything to be or not to be. That is the question. So it was all it was locked in because it's what she did all of the time.
And it's also true that, that their purpose is a tease. Everything that they write is a tease.
Yes,
and so
absolutely
is coming up after the commercial break. We'll tell you something you need to know.
Absolutely, yes.
So the absolutely is always towards a tease. You're going to miss out on this. You don't listen. It's
because
all.
If you don't hang on, we're going to lose our jobs.
Absolutely, yes. So it's
That's
pitch being used
exactly right.
very strategically. So a couple
Well,
of notes.
oh, wait. Joy, when
Yeah.
you were describing that person a minute ago, that actually kind of
Mhm.
sounded like when people do William Shatner impersonations.
Hmm.
Huh.
She packed my bag last night. Free flight. 0 hour 9.
Mhm.
Again.
Huh.
Specific pitch pattern. Yep, and specific rhythm too. Yes.
Or what's that
That's
character in Friends? Could it be any worse than this? I mean, they used to joke about Chandler. Chandler always ending up on a note, regardless of the message, you know.
Interesting. Yes, definitely. We have individual habits as far as pitch.
That's
Let me see.
actually my field. I was a television local news
Ah,
reporter,
tell us
and
more.
it's funny because the consultants always tell you speak naturally, don't speak in that sing song, but it's just hard. You're on deadline, you're rushing, and you just kind of fall into that pattern. But some people are much better at making it listenable. I know there's like a local radio news reporter here that I have to turn the thing off, and he's a wonderful person, but it's just such a pattern. Like he could be saying anything and the pattern is never going to vary one bit.
Interesting.
And I just can't even listen to that. But there's some people who speak in the broadcast news pattern and it's okay. But yeah, my voice was actually always the worst part of my, toolkit. Not necessarily inflection wise, but just the quality of my voice. I was never happy
Hmm.
with.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. God, absolutely.
But,
Wow.
but some people,
Okay.
some people actually think that style of speaking is the best style that you should, I don't know, it's the gold standard. Because I've definitely told people, a person who's talking in a testimonial in their own voice has more credibility because it's a real comment. But if you're talking like a news commentator, it sounds like you're reading the prompter and it's very phony. And I've had people go, no, that's a great voice. So people have actually learned to think that news style is somehow, I don't know.
Patty, which raises a great point, and then I'll segue back into our work or continue around our work, but specifically on the exercises. I would say that ideally with our sessions together, ideally you would be in that sweet spot of your own voice with a sprinkling of tools to make it, sort of sousson or a sprinkle of effectiveness of sort of learned techniques, but techniques that don't take you into the sort of the sing song that Colette was talking about. All right. Let me move on, friends. So we're still in the low note of authority, and Olivia, just to give you a heads up, you're the person I'm about to call on for this next little bit, just so you're not ambushed. I can't find you.
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so I just wanted to give you some brief tips about this low note. And so, Olivia, if you're looking, you'll be saying that sentence towards the bottom. The weather was terrible. They hadn't eaten for days. They needed a safe haven. And I'll call on you in one moment. So, folks, just some tips about the low note. I use the metaphor of spice. We want to use the low note when we're really done. So I suggest that it should be strong, not only low in pitch, so that I'm not saying that you die down, that you die off at the end of the line. So you kind of need enough breath to sustain it. But I'm also saying if you're using that low note for finality, really save it until you're at the end of your thought. Otherwise, the listener and you sort of have to pick up the energy, if you use it for every sentence. And my instructions are in there, but Olivia, you'll see if you could continue the energy, speaking naturally, but then really ending on a strong low note on haven when you're ready.
The weather was terrible. They hadn't eaten for days. They needed a safe haven.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. And again, the notion is just that you don't, if you say the weather was terrible, they hadn't eaten for days, They needed a safe haven. Then it becomes a little bit of the William Shatner that Ben was talking about. And then we sort of have to start it all over again. But if you save it as Olivia did, then we know when you're done, like a good news story. All right, friends. I'm throwing them at you now because I want to give you at least a good 10 minutes for speech work. But actually, we're at our last examples, so we'll make it. You can also use pitch or inflection to spice up a list. Kind of like our compare contrast, you can use pitch to indicate pitch, I would say, and then spacing things out to separate things. Oh, and I just see a typo. And to designate or delineate favorites. So the sample sentence, today at the store, I purchased grapes, blueberries, strawberries, and bananas. I'll ask a volunteer. Let me see. Zell, I happen to see your face. Please indicate using pitch. This is more technical, but indicate using pitch which one of those is your favorite fruit.
I purchased grapes, blueberries, strawberries, and bananas.
Do it again. Wait,
Okay.
Tell us with your voice again which one
All
was your
right.
favorite.
I purchased grapes, blueberries, strawberries, and bananas.
Excellent. Thank you. And so I actually want to say that Zell was excellent and clear both times. So the first time you made the list clear without necessarily, and I asked you to exaggerate. You separated the fruits in a super clear way. We didn't know the preference. And so that I would say that first reading would be, again, if we were doing business speak, or if, again, my example with Dr. Fauci, if he were listing the vaccines without indicating a personal preference. And then that second one, when I asked you to exaggerate, it was quite clear and used both inflection and pitch. Inflection and the rate of your speech to tell us about that. Anyone else want to give a go and give us a same sentence but indicate a different favorite fruit? Florence, I'm seeing you coming off of mute.
Coming. Today at the store, I purchased grapes, blueberries, strawberries, and bananas.
Thank you. Yes. So then we got both, and we got inflection and rate of speech again. All right. Last one for the evening before you turn to applying some of these principles to your own texts. I wanted to tell you about the 3-part build. You can also use pitch to create momentum with a 3-part build, also known as the rule of 3. I've encountered it in Shakespeare. I also took Latin in high school, and it was Veni, Vidi, Vici, I believe, if that's correct. My remnants from Julius Caesar, so it may not only be a
Vidi, Vidi, Vici.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not only an English language thing. If you all speak other languages, you can let me know if this 3-part build occurs there as well. But here's some well-known builds. If you're familiar with Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, the very end is free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. So first, the audience hears a pattern, then the audience hears a second pattern, and they go to expect it, and then we get the sort of triumphant remark the third time. And I see someone's chatting with me. I just want to make sure I catch it. Okay. Thank you, Florence. Liberté, equalité, fraternité. Yes, excellent. Absolutely. You see Winston Churchill's example. This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. And then from the U.S. Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It could be, any three. It could be we could actually have gone, we could go back to our fruits. Let me see if I can get back there. I mean, in theory, well, there are 4 fruits, but let's say if we eliminated grapes, in theory, if we could do this as a 3-part build. Today I purchased blueberries, strawberries, and bananas as an example. So pretty much anything can be a 3-parter. All right. This course is never long enough. For the remainder of our time together, I would like you to take your texts in hand. And we're sort of rehearsing with them in real time. Actually, let me give you a moment with the texts if you have them. And if you don't, you can minimize us and pull up a New York Times or a Washington Post article. Or if you'd like to speak extemporaneously from a topic, you can also use that. And the challenge, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to apply something that we did today. So if you would like to play with operative words, if you find that you have a list in your remarks, or you have a list that you think might be a build, if you'd like to experiment with upward and downward inflection. And this is less about, let's say if this were a text that you were going to prepare for a presentation or performance, it's less about making the perfect choice now than us experimenting and applying. So again, less about the perfect choice and more about, we're playing. An open rehearsal is how we might think of this. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to give you, and I see folks already on mute speaking their remarks aloud. Why don't I give you a couple of minutes? So it's 5:18 by my laptop. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to kind of step your way through whatever your text is, and then ask anyone to come off of mute and share a bit applying some of these. And I'm going to put some of the things we did in the chat since there were so many of them. Also, friends, I'm going to give you, I know I'm flooding you with choices. If you really liked the resonance work from last week, and so you just want to play with that a bit more, the voice of confidence or the voice of enthusiasm, the heart voice, etc., that can also be something that you experiment with. Sorry. Okay, friends, it is 5:21, and I want to give you a chance to play a bit off of mute. I will also say I don't want to shortchange your practice, so you'll practice more next week. So know that, just know that. So this is not like a pitch. This is the beginning where we're our open rehearsal, and then we'll build in more time for it next week. So less talking from me and more practice next week, including in breakout rooms. Colleen, were you saying something?
No, I'm just reading.
Oh, okay. All right. If you don't mind, I'm going to volunteer you. And so everyone will dance around the screen and everyone will have a chance to, like I said, sort of play a bit between now and 5:30, but also knowing we'll dig in deeper, we'll apply more, we'll work longer next week. Yes, Colleen, so give us a little bit of something.
It sounds like what you want me to do is to use some of the lessons from today on a few sentences that I'm reading. Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any suspects? Are there any suspects? Are there any suspects? Are there any suspects?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Let's see. The downside of the situation is that it appears to be an inside job.
Thank you. I feel like we're all going to be able to nail that ending the speech. All right. Someone else like to go? Yes. I saw Patty's hand and then Zell, and then we'll whip around from there. Patty, yes, give us a little something.
Okay. You expressed a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. This is certainly a legitimate concern, since we so diligently urge people to obey the Supreme Court's decision of 1954 outlawing segregation in the public schools. At first glance, it may seem paradoxical for us to consciously break laws. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others?
Thank you. Yes. And so again, in rehearsal, we wouldn't keep all of those with Colleen as well. You know, we're playing now. Some of them we might keep, some, the rest go by the wayside in rehearsal. Yes, Zell, go for it, sir.
All right, I'll just read a stanza from this poem.
Okay.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth.
Thank you. Yes, Ben shouted out Robert Frost. Is that correct? Nice. All right. Thank you for playing. Yes. All right. Next, someone else. You saw how it goes. We're playing a bit. Yes, Robin. I think you're muted. Oh, you are. You're unmuted. Okay, perfect.
Stories of those above ground were told and retold until there were myths. The husband who cooked feasts, the wife who swam the ocean, the lover who could fly, the child who reads minds, and the talking dog.
Thank you. Thank you for ending on a note of finality. Excellent. Anyone else want to play a bit? Florence, yes.
Okay. Now, if you fool around on the hill up here, then you don't get nothing, I don't get nothing, and he don't get nothing. So how about it, honey?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? You saw how it goes. Now I'm going to... Great. Who's I? Is that Olivia?
Olivia, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I had a farm in Africa at the foot of Ningon Hills. The equator runs through these highlands, 100 miles to the north, and the farm lay at an altitude over 6,000 feet. In the daytime, you felt that you got high up near the sun, but in the early mornings and evenings were limpid and restful, and the nights were cold.
Really, okay, yes. People are nodding, not only at Meryl Streep, but yes, really setting up the contrast. Yes. Thank you, Meryl, AKA Olivia.
Meryl Streep is overrated.
Oh, okay.
Only because
I had to do that old joke.
Woo! Ooh, okay. Anyone
chills.
else? Chris, I'm looking at you.
Okay.
Oh, and then we'll definitely be able to get to everyone. Great.
All right. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job, and our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned a great many lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Thank you. And Chris, really clear. There's like this whole sort of like pitch bucket of father saying, do you know what I mean? Because you set it up. There's like a whole, in that case, it's like buckets are how I think of them. You're really letting us follow the story, not only with words, but with pitch too, just as Olivia did with the contrast. And Olivia, that your voice happened to be in a higher pitch, and then your voice got deeper as the day passed was also lovely.
What do buckets have to do with this?
Absolutely nothing. They're completely metaphorical, not vocal at all. I just meant that he tied, Ben, and thank you for the clarification. I'll try to say this briefly. He talked about his father. He used the word sane, accountant, and they all happened, as it happened, they all were in the same pitch range. So it was the same set of ideas, Ben, and then whether or not Chris intended it, there were related sets of ideas, and they happened to be in the more or less the same pitch range. So we were able to connect, and we would have anyway, but he set them up nicely, not only with the words, but with the pitch as well. All right, I've got Colette, Barry. Either of you burning to go? Colette.
Okay. I don't think I didn't actually, I think, practice this correctly, so I'm going to be winging it.
It's an open rehearsal. So we're or if it's more relaxing, we're messing about a bit with what we've explored today.
A treasure hunt through Kualoa Ranch drives the plot of Finding Ohana, a family-friendly adventure comedy that debuts Friday on Netflix. But Hawaii residents might see the film as an Easter egg hunt for references to island culture and history as well. I think Hawaii residents will really experience it in a way that nobody else can, says Kelly Hu, the former Miss Hawaii USA turned actor who stars as a single mom in the movie. There's a lot of Hawaiian humor in particular that mainlanders will not get.
Yes, thank you. Easter egg, single, definitely. We heard you lifted things that were distinct that we were supposed to listen out for. And Barry, and let me know if I've missed anyone. I think not, but Barry, whenever you're ready.
The air changed when Hank Aaron walked into the room, its occupants inevitably reacting in one of two polar opposite ways, depending on the setting. Total awestruck silence or spontaneous and unabashed applause. And it was that way again Friday upon the devastating news that Aaron had died at 86. The reactions came in grand sweeping statements about his monumental impact on the game and larger American culture, and in hushed, halting, heartbreaking words about his impact on the people who knew him.
Yes, again, very subtle. And Barry, really interesting that you really lifted monumental with pitch and spent a little time on that word so that you gave us the size of the word, or hushed. You hushed, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ben, I missed you. Yes. My apologies. Thanks for speaking up. And then we'll end the evening with Ben when you're ready.
In my youth, said his father, I took to the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life.
Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you for ending the evening with the note of finality. Thank you, sir, and some powerful downward inflections. thank you everyone also for indulging us. It's 5:30. Oh my gosh, Florence, were you waving goodbye or wanting to go? Had I skipped you?
I'm waving goodbye.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I want to reflect. I would want to respect your time. I will build in more practice of this. I think we also do enunciation next week. So we'll just build in less of me and more of you. I'll also send the summary of this class. I'll send some bonus videos on pitch from YouTube. I will also send the notes from the sharing. And Colette, did you have something for me?
I just had a question. I looked at the videos last night, but I just remembered as I was rushing out the door and I was kind of watching them as I was doing something else, but I heard one thing that sounded really interesting. I think it was the last of the three, and he talked about your tongue being like an elephant sitting on your little vocal cords. Does that ring a bell with you? But I missed how he said you correct that so you don't have the elephant sitting on your vocal cords.
So, and first I want to say, everyone, take off if you need to, because I know some
Yeah,
folks.
sorry.
So it's a combination. Sometimes sometimes tongue tension, tongue placement, and jaw placement are connected. So you may start with relaxing your jaw. Then you do a series of exercises to essentially lower your tongue. So exercises such as stretching it out of your mouth and doing various things like that. And then you practice over time, because it's just habitual that the tongue kind of sits up there, and it's almost like a mute on a trumpet. If one is, just habitually, it can happen where the tongue will mute some of the sound that they were creating. So essentially you learn to have it rest so that the back is down. But I can send some exercises. Well, first I'm going to rewatch it to make sure that I'm giving you advice, which is not from outer space. But it's an issue that I had as a singer. And so it's either habitual or habitual emotional, where you're cutting off the sound because you're, you actually don't want to be heard, or you're insecure about being heard. So that it may be merely habitual, it may be habitual emotional. So then you retrain the tongue.
It was the video with the man. I think the other two were both women. So that's
okay.
That's
great.
Okay.
Great. Well, I will rewatch it, and then if I need to adjust, I'll readjust in the summary. Sorry, I know we're running over time. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Look out for materials, and as always, email me if you have any questions. Okay. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.